You're listening to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, alternative DVD commentaries. I'm your co-host, Justin, and I'm sitting here in the Soulless Minions virtual studios with my fellow co-host, Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hello.
Hello, Josh. Now, today we are going to be doing Superman versus the Elite. Now, before we get going, I want to point out that this is something very different. I don't want to waste time during the film talking about this because it is short. I wanted to try a little experiment. Josh and I, whenever we've done these commentaries, they're on films that we've seen before. This is different. I thought it would be interesting to suggest a film to Josh that he watched that he's never seen and that he would never willingly or voluntarily put on himself, and then do a commentary on it, and then turn around and do the reverse. So this is going to be a two-part piece. This is going to be part one, where I'm introducing Josh to Superman versus the Elite, and sometime down the line, hopefully next, Josh is going to introduce me to a movie that I would not otherwise voluntarily put on, and see what I have to say about it. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be interesting.
And Justin and I have not discussed how I felt about this.
No, I have resisted the temptation to even ask you straight up if you liked it or you didn't. That's going to be question numero uno when this starts.
Because I'm not watching this for the first time now. I just watched this the previous evening before this recording.
Right. But, yeah, I don't know whether you liked it or not. So, okay, with that said, let's go ahead and get this queued up. If you watch the movie with us, which we certainly hope you do, you're going to want to pause this on the first black frame after the Warner Brothers Premiere logo fades to black. I'm watching the Blu-ray. Josh is watching the DVD. We know the counterclocks are just a little different, so pay attention to that. That's the important thing. So in a minute, I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1 on pause. We're going to unpause together and watch the movie. So here we go. Everybody grab your remotes. Get her ready. 3, 2, 1, unpause. This is our DC logo here. Marvel has their own, but this is DC's. I think it's pretty flashy. I like it.
They're both flashy.
All right, Josh. Question number 1. Did you like it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. I'm glad to get that out of the way.
I did like it very much. I was actually quite surprised by how much I found myself enjoying it.
I'm not surprised because, as I'm sure we're going to go into, there's quite a few things going on in this.
Well, I got to be honest though. I mean, when this was starting out, I was like, I don't know. I mean, this is our first animated feature. We should mention also.
Okay.
We've never done an animated feature before, and I've never been one on animation, really.
Certainly not superhero animation.
No,
I mean, you've watched, Little Mermaid, Lion King, all that stuff.
Well, I grew up watching animation like everyone else, but not to the extreme amount of most kids growing up. And I really like this title sequence, by the way.
I'm glad you just said it because it actually is important to note that this is very unusual for these DC animated movies. I think it's really cool. It's very different. And it's not, if you're to watch any of the other animated ones that I have, you'll find that none of them have an opening sequence like this. This one is big and loud and fun and energetic, which is really neat. But the other ones play a little more classical with a nice orchestral score over the credits.
Why is it they decided to go different?
I have no idea. And if you think about it, the themes in the movie are pretty serious and almost fly in the face of this fun, energetic opening. But whatever, it's all good. It's fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked it. It's a catchy dun-dun, dun-dun.
Well, I like the way it plays homage to the various styles of Superman.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Now, I'm sure when this sequence came up, you probably thought, oh my God, he fucked me.
Yeah, it's like, Jesus Christ, Justin, the fucking Cookie Crisp guys? I was like, what is this?
Believe me, when this movie started myself, I was like, holy God, what are they doing? You find out very quickly, of course, that this is, a show within a show.
It didn't take me too long to figure that out. I was like, this can't possibly be what the movie's going to be, because what the hell am I going to say about this? Why would he make me watch this?
Well, since we're, here we go. This is the first thing. This whole movie is about examining Superman's role in the world, who he is, who he's perceived as, and what he wants to be. And, here he is with Lois, and we find out that Superman, not Clark, Superman, has authorized the use of, the Superman's image in this thing. And now, he thought they were going to do something good with it or whatever, and she's trying to point out to them, look,
who's profiting from all this?
Superman is partly, what people perceive him to be. And if you don't watch your S, as she puts it, then people are going to ruin your image, and your image is important. And that is, of course, ultimately what this movie's about, and the moral dilemma that Superman faces, or at least one of them. I think that was a really kind of neat way to do it. A fun, not terribly subtle, but very fun way to start it off.
Well, as we just saw the two of them about to kiss, something that came to my mind while watching this last night was, what age group was this intended for?
I don't really know if they have a specific target.
Because there's a few little risque lines here and there, and I thought, well, this must be at least meant for older teens, not.
This
not
is
for
meant
kids.
for older teens, yes,
Okay.
and I mean, I don't think they're stupid. They know that their audience is people like me, adults that haven't let go,
Obviously,
and there's nothing wrong with that. I will, verbally spar with anyone who says that cartoons are for kids. I disagree. It's just another form of telling a story.
I agree with you. I totally do. I just, it's not only the fact that this is animation, it's also superheroes, comic books, and that's something I've never developed a taste for, a liking for that you have. Mm-hmm. So it's not something I explore. But I enjoy Superman, and most of my Superman knowledge comes from the 4 Christopher Reeve Supermans.
Sure.
But I know the basic stuff.
Which is important to note, because these animated adventures, which are all done by the same people, don't particularly draw on those Donner films, which is good. That they build more from the comics, and then in many ways have developed their own mythos. Mm-hmm. For example, Brainiac, for example. I know you don't really know who Brainiac is, but he's one of Superman's major villains, and they changed part of his backstory, and made it better, in my opinion. But
well, I know the basics of my superheroes. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. I know all that stuff. Captain America, but I've never been one to read comics, buy comics, talk about comics. I've heard about. Most of my knowledge, as I said, comes from the Reeve films and what I've heard from aficionados like yourself. Mm-hmm. So I've picked up knowledge over the years. I've heard about Brainiac. Yeah, don't really know much about him. Or this character,
let's try and stay with what's going on. I don't even really know much about this guy right now.
Atomic Skull.
Yeah, he's a nobody.
See,
now give me some impression of what's going on here right now, from your perspective. Within the movie.
As this was starting off, I wasn't fully enraptured by what was going on. This seemed like a typical Superman versus a big villain. Yeah. Just a nondescript kind of guy. I wasn't sure if he was an established villain in the Superman mythos, so I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel anything about this guy or not. But obviously, I knew, well, this isn't going to be the main through line through the movie because he's defeated so easily.
Mm-hmm. But what just happened there was important, and it's again, it's not fantastically subtle, but at least it's not spoken. And that's when Superman stood over him, clenching his fist, and that he wanted to continue. Mm-hmm. He would have liked to have put this guy down, but it is absolutely against what he does and what he stands for. And
here's
the elite. And that Superman does that he restrains himself when he, of course, has the power to pretty much obliterate anyone he comes across, is very telling of his character, and something that is not always dealt with, either in the comics, movies, or animated forms. This movie pays specific attention to that, which I think makes it very interesting. The fact that he must always restrain himself.
Definitely.
And how hard that must be, and what an emotional toll that must take. because there's going to be people in this world that think he's weak for not continuing and following through with things like that.
As we soon find out.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in this modern day time, which again is what this movie's all about.
Mm-hmm.
So was this Justice Superman?
One of the
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I enjoy seeing Superman in these kind of forums where if you're to accept that Superman exists and you're watching a world where he exists, knowing Superman as he is, this is how, I mean, and they do it in the movies. This is what would happen. He is part of the democracy of the world. So he's actually at the United Nations, taking part in the process. And here he is stating his belief. I will not take the law into my own hands. I will help fight these battles, but I will not be judge, jury, and executioner. That's not my job. And I don't want it, you know.
I thought that was a little silly.
It was a little silly, but
it was funny. It gave me a chuckle.
Yeah.
Well, immediately I think of Superman 4.
Superman 4, yeah.
When he's in the, what's supposed to be the UN.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the speech he probably should have given in Superman 4.
That's what I was thinking. I was like,
and
wow,
it's what Tom Mankiewicz kind of tried to get across to Christopher Reeve, which was don't have him solve the world problems, you know. And
well, as we're on the theme of this story, I got to tell you, it's a moral quandary that you find yourself jumping into, and I can't say I agree with Superman. I'm on the side of the elite. I think
it's a tough battle, isn't it?
I think they had the right answer. In order to defeat evil, you have to become evil yourself. You have to be
not just regular evil, but people in particular, anyway, people that would do egregious harm.
I think it's necessary. It's necessary to get your hands dirty, and
sometimes.
I think this movie would have been stronger. Although I think it is very strong. I think it would have been stronger if they left the ending a little more ambiguous
as to maybe what happened.
Well, as to what the right answer is.
Oh, okay.
In the end, it's pretty much settled. That
we'll talk about that when it gets there. Let's not jump the gun.
Well, this is great. This is something that I've thought about. What does Superman do with
other countries?
Other countries where there's wars. Does he interfere with that, or does he just save cats and speeding away trains, out of control trains? And I don't know. Does he get involved in the internal conflicts of other countries? Well,
not internal conflicts, but when there's major plights,
he's inadvertently getting involved. Whether he wants to or not.
He's kind of always promoted himself as having the belief system of an American, but he believes people are people, and if people are in danger, he'll help save them.
Well, that's something they very much tout in this truth, justice, and the American way. He gets flack for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a big fight scene right now. So let's take a second. I'm very curious to get your impression on the voice casting. I'm not even remembering specifically their names because I don't think this was the normal DC casting where Tim Daly does Superman, for example.
I checked to make sure if it was Tim Daly because I know he did Superman in some venue. I wasn't sure.
Many.
But I wasn't sure. But as I was listening to the voice, I was like, that doesn't sound like Tim Daly.
Right.
But he did fine. The only voice that stuck out to me was the villain,
the main guy.
Yeah.
He's got a great voice.
Yeah, black.
Time to take your medicine, love.
As a British guy, I mean, I'm glad I had the subtitles on because he has kind of that British accent. It can be hard to understand, and British like to use different phrases here and there.
And he does.
Yeah, I thought that was great that they didn't try to Americanize his dialect. They just
no, man, they went full out with him.
Yeah.
Now, my take on the elite characters themselves was the main guy who I'm forgetting his name. He was very compelling. Obviously, they spent the most time developing him. The other three, as the movie started, and clearly it became obvious they were going to focus on the main guy. I thought, man, they're really just wasting these other three. They seem kind of generic and boring. But as the movie played,
Manchester Black.
Yeah. And that's actually, he's not wearing a shirt. That's a tattoo
of the British flag.
That's tattooed on him. He's topless.
Oh, I thought it was a shirt.
I thought so too. Pay closer attention. They even talk about it. But the three other characters actually do. I mean, they're still rather superficial, but they do become a little more interesting. The drunk guy, Hat. He's got his own kind of thing he's dealing with his power. It's kind of a love-hate thing he's got going on. And the girl, she's a sex fiend, and
well, I thought she was a lot of fun.
She was fun. And then the big black guy, I think he's I could be wrong, but I think he's the first one that kind of starts to maybe question what they're doing towards the end, anyway. But he also gets a little bit of development, which was interesting.
Well, this has a runtime of about 76 minutes, so I didn't expect a whole lot of depth from the characters, so of course they focused on Manchester.
Oh, of course, and it was the right choice. I mean, Manchester is extremely interesting. But yeah, I enjoyed the Elite. I didn't know anything about the Elite going in.
I would have appreciated a little bit more backstory on the rest of the members of the Elite. I mean, because you do get to learn about Manchester, but not so much about the rest of the team, where they came from, how they developed their powers exactly. I was curious about that.
Well, I'm sure they did it in the comic, because this is based off of a either graphic novel or a set of issues.
It was okay. Now, what was this made for? Was it made just for DVD? Was it part of a TV show that was a special episode of, or
no. This is a made for Blu-ray movie.
Okay.
Yeah, the production of Superman the Animated Series is long since over, and DC Comics, the animated division, has produced a number of animated films based on Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and this is just one of them down the pipeline, and they're all quite excellent.
The jury's still out, Jimmy.
One of the things that was a surprise to me was, in this continuity, I suppose, that Lois knows who Clark is.
Well, in the last Superman animated film that they did, called All-Star Superman, he revealed to her. They were about to get married, in fact. But again, this is in line with the comics. In the comics, she knows. They get married, and she knows all about him.
I wasn't, because my Superman fiction, I'm used to Lois not knowing. So
of course, and that's largely pre-crisis stuff. The post-crisis stuff, they've gotten together and all that. And from a storytelling perspective, it's more interesting. He has someone to talk to, and the dynamic of sneaking out the window so she won't see and all that gets old real fast. So this is interesting, because Lois is a fantastic partner, I mean, who wouldn't want to have Lois at your side? She's a go-getter.
Well, I'm glad that they painted her in a way that I wasn't used to, because the way I'm used to is she's more annoying, at least from the films anyway. That's what I'm used to. She's more annoying than anything else and can get herself into dangerous situations. But here she's actually very she's very independent, self-assured. But she does need some rescuing here from time to time, but I wasn't thrown off by the usual Lois traits that I've been accustomed to, which was very refreshing. I like the way he casually flies up here.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a cape, he has a trench coat.
Yeah.
And that's really a tat. That's not a shirt.
Right. I actually like that while flying up there, he tells him, look, we need to talk privately, but before we go, I got to tell you, I'm just having a jazz that I'm talking to Superman. That's pretty cool. Even he's kind of starstruck. It's funny.
Yeah, right when I saw this scene come up, I was like, oh, okay, he's going to become important later for some reason.
Good for the skin.
But one of the things I thought of going into this with a title like Superman versus the Elite, I was like, okay, this sounds like a stereotypical kind of Superman versus a bad guy. But the title is kind of misleading. It's really not. Well, it does become Superman versus the Elite in the end, but for the longest time it's Superman versus a moral quandary. Not really. He's not fighting them necessarily.
Well,
I thought that they were going to be stereotypical villains, but they're actually good guys.
Well, for the most, I mean, what their intentions are good.
Their intentions are good, but they're good guys. Maybe they do bad things.
Yeah, well, that's the dilemma. At what point do you become a bad guy when you're doing these good things?
Their motives are good. It's not like there's a gray area they're operating in, like with Catwoman, where she's kind of good, kind of bad. Their intentions are good, and they want to rid the world of evil. That's clear.
Right. But, the problem with that sort of attitude is what makes you the judge. They obviously, as we'll see later on, they finish a few people off. And you could certainly argue that these people deserved it. But when does that stop? And that's Superman's problem. When does it stop? And who makes you the judge? You keep going on. You keep going down this path, and what makes you what's gonna make you stop when someone is just committing a wicked session of road rage, and you decide to go off on them? Where do you draw the line? What level of violence is appropriate for what crime? And again, what makes you the judge? That's Superman's basic beef here, as they start getting a little out of hand.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminded me of the moral quandary that the graduate students in The Last Supper battled over. How many people do they poison, and when it's become too much, and in the end they were actually just poisoning just whoever they had over for dinner, whether they agree with their politics or not, and if they didn't, they would try to change their mind.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very, very good example.
Mm-hmm.
See, now this stuff, like you're pointing out, that this is not for kids. This is definitely older stuff.
Definitely.
And
I like the fact that he actually called him Soups.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that. I thought that was just a slang that happened in the comic book circles, people talking about the movie, not actually in the world itself. I wasn't aware of that.
Well, Manchester's a very laid-back guy.
Well, I didn't know that nickname carried actually into the fictional world itself. I didn't know that.
I lost me mom.
Now, what do you think of this backstory with Manchester?
It's a little slim, but it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a little cliched, homeless Oliver Twist type character, but it's good enough. And as I was watching this, of course, I'm trying to compare it to the live action Superman films, not the Christopher Reeve films, because those are all good. Say what you will about number 3 and 4,
mm-hmm.
but I was particularly focusing on Superman Returns.
Right.
And I was like, well, how are people going to compare this story to that one? Are they going to say, well, this is more successful in telling a story than that? And I'm like, is it or isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, it is. I'm like, this is so much more of an intriguing story than Superman Returns, which just played it completely safe.
Yeah. Going
the same old route of Lex Luther has a real estate scam.
Right.
I was like, I've seen this before. What makes Superman interesting is the moral dilemmas that he may find himself in, such as this case right here.
Mm-hmm.
And not the Kryptonite thing. That's been done.
It's been done and it gets old.
And Superman is practically indestructible. Other than Kryptonite, he's indestructible.
Well, as you see at the end of this, he's not. He does have physical limits.
Well, yeah, but for the most part, he is pretty indestructible.
He's extremely powerful, yes.
So what, it would be hard to come up with a villain that would be interesting. And what the villain is in this movie isn't the actual elite, but
their ideas.
Yeah, that he finds himself facing.
Although you do find that physically the elite together, maybe not individually, but together, they do pose a threat.
They do.
To him.
And Lois, mentions that.
Yeah.
He's about to go do battle. But that's something that is a good villain for Superman. Where does his power stop? Where, how far can he go?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. If they'd made a live action film out of this idea, that would be interesting.
Especially in today's modern day age, yes.
Well,
absolutely.
that's just a good Superman story.
Mm-hmm.
this Superman Returns film, was just playing it by the numbers, and there's Kryptonite and there's Lex Luthor, and it was just a complete misfire. And I was like, they should have just gone back to their roots and have them write a story like this. Why not? These people write Superman all the time. Mm-hmm. Why not have people who know Superman write Superman?
Yeah.
Why not? Where's the game?
I've long held the idea that the people that produce these animated movies, who did all of the animated TV shows also, should do a live action movie, because they clearly get it. And in no small part is his moral dilemma always, brought into question. His powers versus his willingness to use them. And that is what makes Superman interesting, and the fact that he's alone in the type of power that he has. That makes him fantastically interesting and isolated. And, that is, brought to pass in this, in a smaller degree than in other movies, that his abilities, his unique abilities, make him isolated, because he no one understands what he deals with. Mm-hmm. People can see it, people can be his friends, but no one can understand what it's like to have that sort of power and either use it or not use it. No one gets that. It's what makes Superman interesting.
Yeah. See, this is the type of stuff of Superman that I'm used to. Him just saving good, random strangers, from trains. So this was nothing special, but it was, because like I said, I expected them immediately to be fighting, the Elite to be fighting Superman. Mm-hmm. With a title like that. So I was like, wait a minute, they're working together? Oh.
Yeah, no, they take a little time to,
I was like,
give something to these characters.
Because I kept waiting for an atypical storyline. I was like, okay, so, all right, they're working together. Okay, when's it going to come? They're going to turn. Oh, obviously they have ulterior motives. When's that going to happen? They want to take over the world, and they're just playing along with Superman. That's going to turn any second now. Mm-hmm. But it never did.
No, not really. And they were pretty straight up about their intentions,
Well, I thought that, I just expected there to be a scene where, we reveal, the true nature of the Elites.
Right.
They really want to harbor all the world's nuclear energy, and no, nothing like that. It was,
nope.
We want to rid the world of all the bad guys. And I was like, oh, that's actually their real motive. So they're being honest. I was like, okay.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't think they have any intention of causing Superman harm. That's not their motive. In fact, when this scene comes to an end, Manchester Black, he feels really good that he did something with Superman and it helped people, and it was all that. But that's because, they idolized him at this point. As they develop a little bit more of a relationship, he feels more comfortable to question and all of that. But, it felt good to do this with Superman. He enjoyed that.
It's interesting that they mentioned property damage in one of the previous scenes, and I'm thinking even here, that's
a lot of collateral damage.
Well, that's a lot of property damage. It's just going to take a long time to repair all that.
Yeah. See, now, now his dark side comes out. Mm-hmm. But like you said, he's not trying to be a bad guy. No. He doesn't think of himself as a bad guy. He just thinks these punks need to suffer.
They do.
And most people would tend to agree. But
we'll see, right there, he got a little involved with the politics, England's support of Bialia, he said. And he's crossing the line. That's something Superman would never get involved with.
Exactly.
I mean, Superman says truth, justice, in the American way, but, does he really ever... Does he go around passing out American flags or anything like that?
No, he doesn't.
I mean, he's not wearing a tattoo of an American flag like...
I like this kiss business thing here. Mm-hmm. He's like, it was just a thing. She was excited. That's got to be hard being Lois. Everybody loves Superman. She takes it in stride and she moves on. She gives him a little business, but she's Lois. She's not threatened, and she knows Clark. It's a remarkable trust relationship.
It was very refreshing to see Lois painted this way, because the last time I saw her on screen was Superman Returns, and that was
Is that what you believe?
not
No, this is Lois. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have that and Margot Kidder. That's how I know.
Well, this
That's
is
how I
more
know
like
Lois.
Margot Kidder. Just if they had developed those movies to where they were married. This is kind of like Margot Kidder's Lois.
She was a bit frustrating.
Well, yes, but she was certainly more like this than Kate Bosworth.
Yeah. Well, Kate, that was just a complete.
I know.
Everything about that movie was.
I know.
Evening, morning, and afternoon to one and all, wherever you happen.
But you see that this sort of thing that's happening right now. This is what Superman does not do.
How are they doing this? Can you
You
do
know,
this?
he could very easily. He could be a dictator to the world, but he chooses not to.
You're on notice.
Well, I think this is something more. I don't think he's crossing the line into being a dictator yet.
Not yet, but this is where it begins.
But this is sort of akin to what Superman was doing earlier at the UN, except he's actually telling them, hey, bad guys do bad things, so we're going to do bad things back.
Yeah, and
Yeah, mind your manners.
yeah,
Yeah,
or
so
blow your house down.
exactly. So I think he's putting out a warning. This is, but it's not. It hasn't crossed that line yet.
Right.
Superman is. he's
But you can
worried,
tell just
but-
by his look there. He knows where this is going to go.
Oh, look there! So finally, someone's got a pair. Someone just shouted. So,
Well, sure. I mean, you can't blame people for wanting to get behind.
and that's the exact.
elite.
That's the exact thought I had. Finally, someone's got a pair. Someone's gonna do something. Finally,
Yeah.
why not just kill these guys?
That'll give him something.
Why put them in prison so they can escape? I mean,
Well-
you put away Lex Luthor. He just got away in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just kill him?
Yeah. Well, the thing of that is that, and I know I'm basically repeating myself, but the problem with that is take those guys that he almost offed at the just a few minutes ago where Superman stopped them. Those guys, whether it's fair or not, Manchester did not know exactly what was going on. They deserved, even if they were guilty, they deserved some sort of trial or some means to defend themselves, because we don't know all the facts. Neither did Manchester, and therefore he did not have the right to act as judge against them. That's Superman's basic philosophy is who am I to do that? So when Manchester throws down that gauntlet saying, bad guys look out, blah blah blah, he knows where it's going to go. He knows
I thought
exactly
that's
where
what
it's gonna
made
go.
this movie so interesting, is the fact that it doesn't provide an answer, and I don't think anyone can ever provide an answer.
No, it really doesn't. It really
can't.
doesn't end with everyone saying, "Oh my gosh, Superman, you were right the whole time." They don't actually do that.
Well, this movie ends in Superman's favor,
yes,
so
but
it puts him in the good light. But I don't think
I think it
is
does.
a definitive answer to that question.
no, there isn't. But I don't think that, and maybe I'll recant or pull that back when we see it towards the end. But yes, Superman's philosophies definitely come out on the winning side. But I don't think you could say he was 100% victorious, because a lot of the people that were behind the elite probably still were, in principle, just that bad guys need to be punished. The boy whose father gets killed later on. Do you think he's weeping that Manchester killed him? Probably not.
No.
You know what I mean?
Eye for an eye.
Exactly. If I was that kid, I'd be glad that Manchester dealt with him rather than Superman. So it's like you said, it's he wins, but I don't think it's a total victory, which is really neat.
Well, I think that sometimes doing away with evil in the world is a good thing, even if you have to kill to do it.
Oh, I agree. I'm with you.
That was the question behind the Last Supper. Would you kill Hitler?
Mm-hmm.
Most
Would you
people
murder to prevent?
Most people said yes.
Oh yeah, sure.
And, well, I'm like, well, that would probably be a good thing to do. If you have to get your hands dirty yourself, the only one that suffers is you. It's like in the Pale Moonlight from Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
All it cost was one senator and the self-respect of one officer.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's all it costs is your self-respect. But look at the good you've done.
Mm-hmm. Well, these guys that they were just talking, they were basically throwing down the debate of the elite, which is, these guys are taking care of business. And he says, well, that's all well and good, but what happens when they turn their sights on you? And he said, why would they turn on me? I'm a good guy. Before the other guy can answer it, he's basically going to say, well, who says you're a good guy? You do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If they're the judge, you don't know what they think. Mm-hmm. That's where Superman is safe, because he will not kill you. He'll let a judge and jury, make the decision.
Mm-hmm. But then there's also the problem that Superman's methods aren't always effective enough. So that's the gray area.
Certainly.
I mean, sometimes these people do need to be done away with. I mean, obviously, Manchester's methods are a little vicious in here, but he's got a lot of pent-up aggression and anger, obviously, that's coming out.
Yeah, and he's not, keeping his emotions in check.
No.
And that's the problem. Like Superman's always doing that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if these were soldiers or what, like robots. They looked a little bit.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Well, I was a little confused at first. So,
I suppose it actually. I'm sure they're actual people.
Oh, they are people. They take off their helmets here in a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But at first, I thought they were like, "Is this Starship Troopers territory here?"
It actually probably would have been more effective had we seen their faces to know that so you could really see the people, that are being hurt by the elite. That guy's probably toast.
Yeah.
It would have been good to see a face, the guy genuinely terrified. Look at that. This, that's where you get into questionable ground. I'm not defending anyone, but at some level they're, they're just kind of doing what they're told, Mm-hmm. We don't know everything. So did he have the right to squish them? I don't think so.
Well, and again, he's fighting for his country.
Exactly. See, there's politics involved here, and that's very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And, well, they mentioned terrorism, which is something that's very,
of course,
present in today's society.
Now, what did you think about the animation style? I know you don't really have a lot of reference.
I thought it was really, really nice to see an old-fashioned hand-drawn animation,
as opposed to CG.
Everything is CG nowadays. There's no old style animation anymore, and it's really frustrating. That's all they make, and I was like,
all of the DC animated ones are hand drawn like this.
Well, that's great to know. At least they still keep it in that style. But whenever I see commercials, trailers for new films that are animation, it's CG animation. Mm-hmm. It's 3D CG animation. It's not what I grew up with, what animation started out as. So it was really nice.
Well, there's something. There's a lot of CG animation that I think is really awesome and really cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of both. But because my little boy watches a lot of animated stuff, a lot of what they put out these days is CG. I see a lot of that. For example, he's watched a lot of Voltron. They have one particular version of that show that's CG, and they have one that was done actually more recent that was hand drawn. And I prefer the hand drawn. It's actually a lot more expressive. The CG, although like for a movie, they can make their faces very, very expressive, but in a TV format, they're a little more blocky. Whereas with hand-drawn animation, they're able to add so much more to the faces as far as expressions and all that, little movements that seemed harder to do in a quicker time frame with the CG versions of things. And the fact that they do these in 2D hand-drawn animation is really great, and of course they're probably filled in digitally, colored in and everything, so they're very bright and very eye popping, but it's hand drawn, and you just can't beat that, you know. But specifically, though, I was curious about your take on actually the depiction of Superman physically, how he looks, and other characters for that matter.
Well, Superman looks all right. Not the best looking Superman I've ever seen. I think he looks a bit ridiculous as Clark Kent. A little too big in his suit and whatnot.
Well, mind you, they are copying the style that the...
that was funny. That was a good moment.
They're copying the style that the comic was done in. You know, every comic is done by a different artist, and every artist depicts him a little differently. And sometimes I really like how they do it. Sometimes I don't. You know, the Superman in this one, it's not my favorite look, you know. So it's tough.
He looks fine.
But I think Lois looked fantastic.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oxymoron right now. You're barking up the
I mean, as I said, I really don't have much to compare it to. I don't recall what he looks like in comic books or any other animated features because I haven't seen them.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I know you don't have any point of
all
reference.
I can do is look at him and say, well, he doesn't really look like Christopher Reeve, but...
Well, yeah.
The world needs to know what...
She's a little too Matrixy, but that's okay.
Yeah.
First, I thought that was all a cigarette lighter.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, it's one of those little flash drives. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, why is she giving her a lighter? What's that supposed to mean?
Oh boy. And angry, but he saved my life. I'd like to save his.
So, you know, this is an interesting dynamic that the sister is, you know,
part of MI5
and trying to stop him. You know,
who are these guys, by the way?
The robots.
Mm-hmm.
They're from the Fortress of Solitude. Superman has them out there, obviously. Again, that's more post-crisis stuff.
Well, I thought it being a Fortress of Solitude that Superman didn't have anybody there.
No, he does. He's got a lot of stuff in
Okay.
All-Star Superman. I mean, he's got a huge collection of things that, you know, he's held on to over the years. It's basically like Batman's Batcave with, you know, the giant penny and things like that.
Giant penny?
Is it a penny?
I have no idea.
You don't see it obviously in the movies, but you know, in a lot of animated stuff, he has like a giant penny there. I don't know why, but yeah, no, he's got a lot of help there. He's got his robots. They come in handy for him in other animated movies.
Mm-hmm. I like the visual imagery here of the sun. The sun is kind of setting on Superman. The way would that be a motif? Is that a motif? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, setting on his ideals. It's a new world about to dawn.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I hadn't actually thought about the symbolism there, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, this follows the modern day comics where
the father is alive.
Yes.
Yeah, as I'm just used to him being dead.
Yeah, no, but you know, there's something to be said for having him alive in these versions because he really continues to be a sounding board for Clark. And you see that Clark is still never done growing. You know, nobody is. You know, and Pa Kent is always there to fall back on. And I think that's really great. And he can have that father-son relationship that isn't the same if it's the mother. Not that you can't have one with the mother. But, you know, there's just nothing quite like, you know, good old dad going, all right, Clarky boy, you know, we've raised you better than this. And you're going, all right, God, Dad, you're right. You know, I got to do this better, you know. So here we come with this guy again.
A little bit of backstory on him would have been nice because I'm not sure exactly what his power is.
You know, until you started saying it, because frankly, other than this movie, I've never seen him before either. I just knew he wasn't, you know, he certainly isn't a Lex Luthor level of villain, so, you know, I didn't really care. But you're right, though, given that, especially because he shows up twice and what's about to happen to him, I suppose it would have been interesting to know a little more about him. If you look at Manchester, when he does certain movements, you can see his jacket pull away, and you see his nipples, so you can tell.
I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was in the. I don't know if there's a commentary for this or in the behind the scenes for it. They talked about that's a tat. Which, yeah, the first time I saw it, I didn't realize.
I wonder if they consider during the story developments, if perhaps the elite not be a four-party affair, but actually just be one person instead. Say someone who had the powers almost equivalent to Superman. Would it, how would that differ from actually four persons?
I don't know. Maybe because to do that would be it's just your opinion, my opinion, but this is actually a whole group of people that are on the same page and against Superman, or at least his thinking.
Well, I meant, all of these four need to battle Superman together. Not one of them is strong enough to do so alone. So what if there was someone?
No, I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I mean, what if it was just Manchester?
Well, like you said, Manchester couldn't stand up against him.
Well, I mean, what if it was just Manchester, but his powers were
enhanced?
Somewhere along the lines of Superman's level.
I think he would come off more like a punk than he does when he's part of a group. Because when you're part of a group, you have to do things with a certain consensus, and if it was just one guy, I don't know. I think it would take on a different tone. When the elite speaks to the populace, they're saying we will defend you instead of I will defend you. I think there's something in the numbers, that make them a little more interesting.
No, I think you're right.
Okay. Yeah, even as a huge fan of Superman, unfortunately, I don't know who this guy is. He's not. I mean, this whole churning them to death thing, it's interesting, but I don't know anything about him. But of course, I guess they had to use this guy because they couldn't kill off, some sort of major villain.
Yeah, this guy's powers were a little nondescript.
Yeah, they were.
When I saw this pop up, I was thinking, huh?
What? Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. Mm-hmm. And now, not having read the comic, I don't know if there is, in fact, more backstory on all three of them. There might be. I don't know. But you can see that this guy, what did you say his name was?
Can you absorb energy or
Tolcast?
The skeleton guy?
Atomic Skull.
Atomic Skull. He's obviously pretty powerful, and he's able to give Superman a bit of a run for his money. But when you analyze it, that Superman could put him down if he chose. But he's trying to. But this is his thing. He has to do it in such a way where he's not going to kill him. Superman could level him if he wanted to, but he's not going to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Give it, and the man taketh away.
What would have been interesting before we get, or even maybe even during this very scene, I think what might have been interesting to see would be something where the elite in a battle, whether it be with this guy or something else, were allowed to show that they are really on the side of the people and actually either flat out put their lives at risk or attempt to sacrifice themselves or one of them to save people or a group of people, and just to show that they really are trying to do the right thing. They're just willing to go to extremes to do it. But
well, I think it all becomes a matter of show and tell. I mean, they do say that, but seeing that would have been nice.
Yeah, something as simple as just seeing some huge, piece of concrete about to fall on a kid. If Manchester had pushed the kid out of the way and taken the hit, and be really physically hurt by it. That would have been interesting because that would have given you just a little more to sympathize with Manchester, to show that he's not sadistic. He is trying to do good. And he's willing to sacrifice himself if he needs to. But, of course, he doesn't want to. So
well, this is a big moment right here.
This is a very big moment. I love how they play it in slow-mo.
I love how he uses his hand as a gun, even though it's not necessary. But he shapes it like a gun. I thought that was a nice touch.
Really cool.
Mm-hmm. And blows his head off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty dark stuff.
Well, what he said basically was the theme. Like, we tried it your way and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're willing to do what you want. And the kid even says, yeah, just kill him.
Yeah, the kid basically gives him the okay.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. Do away with him. And everyone around cheers.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Superman put his cape
over
the dead body. That was interesting.
Yeah, even this guy right there. You know, hey, I like Superman. You know, what's not to like? But these guys took care of business. I like them too.
This will not be tolerated.
I've lived in Metropolis my entire life. Superman is always...
And, you know, that guy at the UN was saying, you know, this sort of stuff will not be tolerated. That's because they're acting as judge, which you can't do. You know, not in a world set up where there are rules, where there's laws.
Superman's done. This is the age of the...
You know, because what happens when you're the one being judged? You know, what if they're wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like the scary thing with Judge Dredd. You know, he comes in, he just assesses the situation based on what he sees. You know, there's so much more going on.
That's how Rob Schneider was accidentally incarcerated.
Exactly. And God forbid you're on the wrong end of that. Now, if he takes down your neighbor who's playing his music too loud or they're punks, you're like, yeah, good for them. But what if someone calls you a punk and says, that guy's giving me crap, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're going to churn on you. They're not going to listen. You know what I mean?
It's the drumhead from TNG.
Yeah, exactly. Now, to kind of quasi go back, I don't actually recall if he built those robots or what, but, you know, in these animated movies, his Fortress of Solitude is quite the palace. You know?
It seems to be. It's not what I'm used to at all.
No, it is very different.
So pick up your
stupid hologram thing. You know, this is definitely his man cave.
Sweet talker. Yeah, well, not really. I made it through those files on the Elite.
Well, what does he primarily use those robots for, other than what I see in this movie, of course?
You know, and I'm basing this entirely off of the animated movies. He conducts like some sort of scientific stuff there they help with. He's been injured in the comics before, and they've helped heal him and bring him back. You know, that they're basically really smart butlers. You know, and they somewhat have individual personalities. One of them gets destroyed in one of the other movies, the animated movies, and it angers him because these are somewhat his friends in a way.
Yeah, they just mentioned something briefly about the backstory of the rest of the Elite.
Mm-hmm.
She just said, "Oh, they have criminal records, so a mile long." But
right,
that's pretty much it. But who I wonder most about is Pam. Is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she. The other two look human. She doesn't. She looks like an alien almost.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, where does she come from?
I don't know.
See the tongue there? That's.
Well, she's. I think they explain somehow she's like a host to this creature thing. You know, they're like symbiotic. But you don't really get much more.
I mean,
Don't know.
What is it?
Don't know. To the best of my knowledge, the comic that these guys appeared in was their first appearance. So, you know, I don't think they existed separately.
But the real work, fixing the world,
I don't think.
is ours.
See? No, this is it. This is what's happening. This is what Superman knew would happen. Here comes Manchester, dictating.
Sitting down in the chair.
Yeah. What gives him the right to do this? Nothing. You know.
Throwing this back in his face.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Openly threatening people who don't deserve it.
Entering Pogonistan airspace, capital city in range.
Now, you probably watched this on just a regular TV speakers, not surround sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they you know, they do a really good job doing the sound design for these movies. They're big, they're bombastic. They're really fun to listen to. And this particular movie definitely plays politics more than any of the other ones I've ever seen, which was interesting.
Well, I like the fact that they finally did go there.
Mm-hmm. And very appropriate for this story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, we just saw Superman. He'll strip them down, but he's not trying to tell them what to do. He's just trying to save lives.
Well, I thought at first it was the elite doing this, and then I saw the blue and the red. I was like, oh, why is Superman? Isn't this against his own rules to get involved in the politics?
Yeah. Now I don't recall what brought him here. You know, I don't know if they explain that.
Well, they're about to attack this country, kill people, and he's not going to allow that to happen. He wants the politicians to sit down and talk.
Right.
So he's just removing their weapons of destruction. But
right. I mean, I know that's what he's doing, but that is, you know, that is in some way getting involved in the politics. You know, he is trying to just say, everyone just work it out. But even that, even what he's doing here is definitely political. You know, that is saying that, you know, people A over here cannot enforce their will over people B over here. And, you know, Superman does not have the right to do that, but he's doing it anyway. He's doing it in the defense of life.
Well, I think the influence of the elite is made him elevate.
I would agree with you on that one. Yes, he's being pushed. You know, so he is trying to also drive a point home of, look, you know, we can step it up a little. And we can do this sort of thing, but you know, you can't kill people.
Well, this is great right here, and this was what made me really take the side of Manchester. You know, why not just kill the world's, kill the world's leaders? It's not the countries who are at war. It's these assholes that run the countries that are at war.
Oh yeah, so he's saying what everybody thinks.
Yeah, so just kill them. I mean, you know, we might say, oh, we're at war with such and such, but am I really at war with anybody? I mean, we went to Iraq again, and we say, oh, we're at war. Well, I'm like, I'm not at war personally with anybody in Iraq, really. It's the assholes who run our countries that are at war over bullshit.
Right.
So it's
now what do you think of this here? Superman lost his cool.
This was great.
Yep, and this is exactly what Manchester wanted him to do. You know.
Oh, he wants it and he gets it right on camera. I mean, he's got all those cameras everywhere. Obviously, he's a little vain, but I thought it was. For a moment, I thought Superman was going to stop. He was going to catch himself, but I was like, well, we're not going to have a redemption at the end unless he does hit him in the face. So.
Yeah. Yeah, he's having his buttons pushed, and you know, we know Superman is physically capable. He's not afraid to hit someone. You know, he will do it. He gets angry just like anybody else.
And everybody saw him do it.
Yep, that didn't do him any favors.
Public polls indicate that many feel
especially given that, you know, the elite is as popular as they are.
Resolved. However, with Superman next on the elite's list, the question is,
turn it off, please.
See, now I thought that the story was falling into kind of treaded territory, so to speak.
How so?
Well, right now it's okay. Now it's Superman versus the elite. It's like the reporter just said, Superman is next on the elite's list, and to make it, I think, more interesting would just to have been
they have to
have the elite not fight Superman. Why would they? Their cause is for good.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie ultimately wants to paint the picture that what they were doing was wrong, and Superman is right. And I felt it would have been much more interesting if they never gave us an answer. They just left it in the gray, and not turn them into the villains that we are so accustomed to.
People have to know that there's another way. They have to see that.
Why would they turn on Superman? I mean, if they really want to have a strong motive and just rid the world of evil, then fighting Superman would never be something they would want to do.
Well, I don't think they particularly want to do it, but he is directly opposing them.
But seriously, anybody in their shoes would realize that you can't fight and kill Superman, that's going to vilify you. So don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now,
and Manchester and everybody else seems like reasonably intelligent people. So why do that? See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked a little bit more information about this ship.
Mm-hmm.
They never really explained it much. There's a bit of dialogue a little bit ago, but it didn't really tell us much about it. It's just kind of this gigantic floating living entity.
Our Bonnie's a keeper. Some people have no sense of theatre. I call kneecaps.
Spy.
I do enjoy Manchester's sense of theatricality.
I was about to say, he does have a flair for the dramatic.
He does. He's a showman.
He knows he's on TV. Yeah.
Brilliant. But we'll pass the game through to interested parties. Want everyone to see it's a fair fight, yes?
Yeah, see, what's the runtime? We're almost at an hour. You know, we're pretty much coming on to the finale here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really think, you know, like you said before, it's really a testament to what these guys do, the creators of these animated movies and the makers of at least Superman Returns, what you can do with proper storytelling. You know, this does in an hour and about 15 minutes what Superman Returns couldn't do with 2 hours and 2.5 hours. Double. You know, you're more invested in this than you are in Superman Returns.
Yeah, I was thoroughly engrossed in the story at this point. I was really surprised at how much I was enjoying it, and I mean, at this point in Superman Returns, I think I was falling asleep.
Most people were.
Yeah, Superman Returns is one of the few movies that I walked out on, not because it was bad. It was not interesting. There is a difference. Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah.
You know why tell us the origin story again? Why deal with the same old Lois and Clark dynamic? You know, give us something new. Make it cool, like it is here. I mean, they obviously know how to write a good story. Why do they keep futzing around? And that's I hope that the new Superman film will get it right.
Could you imagine what, you know, if this were a live action movie, what they could do with 2.5 hours with this story? How awesome would this have been?
That's what I thought of. Like, you know, they've got a really great story here that's only an hour and 15 minutes or so, and if it was stretched out to 2 hours or even 2.5, I mean, all of these characters here could have had backstories.
Absolutely.
And
you would have gotten more into the public's consciousness, the political aspects,
machinations and whatnot. It would have been really interesting. It would have made for a great live action movie. They would have made a lot of money. So, just goes to show you that, you know, you can make a good Superman story. It doesn't have to be boring as fuck like that Superman Returns movie. So,
yeah. And even in this hour 15 runtime, you do get, you know, even though you don't get a whole lot of depth into the other three Elite, you certainly get interested. You know.
Mm-hmm.
They go from who are you guys to... I
was more interested in these guys than I ever was with Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor.
Oh, yeah. Manchester's far more interesting than Kevin Spacey's Luthor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he actually has... he has inner demons. He has a past.
Yeah.
You know, he has a internal struggle, so that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lex, you know, I don't know. And maybe in some other incarnations, but in the films, he was always kind of a black and white bad guy. He never really had all that much to him. He just wanted to make money.
Well, in the animated versions, in the versions these guys have done, Lex is a lot more interesting and a lot more dynamic. They actually
even so in the Smallville series.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the same people that made it, mind you, but the Smallville series definitely makes Lex more interesting. Than at least Kevin Spacey's, you know, interpretation. But the way they depict Lex in these animated versions, he's a wealthy tycoon, extremely intelligent. I mean, he's probably one of the smartest people on the planet, and he has an ego to match, which is usually his downfall, because he won't let anyone else help him do anything, and sometimes he's wrong, and that actually comes up in one of the movies. But now, since we're in the finale here, I mean, what did you think about this whole finale itself?
Well, at first I wasn't sure what was going on. You know, when Superman reveals himself, But this is exactly what I feared would happen and what I didn't want to happen in the story, which was they're vilifying themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had audience, not audience members, but people of the public looking up, watching TV. Oh, they didn't really kill him. It's Superman.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I knew what would happen. And I'm like, well, they shouldn't be doing that. They should have known that you can't kill the world's superhero and not look like a bad guy. It's just not going to happen.
But that's what Superman was counting on.
I know, but
he's playing to the cameras now, you know.
I think that the story deserved better than that. I think it just went a little too typical in the end. I think the cruelest thing that any superhero can do to another is to take away their powers.
Right.
So I was like, oh, that's worse than killing him. You're making them mortal? Oh, that sucks.
She's not breathing.
I don't dig them being on the moon.
Well, I was about to comment on that. I like it.
Visually, I like it. But of course, there's no they give no explanation as to how.
No. It's a throwaway line. You know, oh, well, the ship allowed us to
is that what
so
it is?
We can breathe.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember that.
All right. And I was like, oh, that's good enough.
Okay, I forgot that then. Never mind.
Well, you know, obviously the writers wanted us to give us a change of venue because we've been fighting in city streets, so why not take it somewhere else?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun to see.
I liked it because it also reminds me of Superman 4.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
I mean, seeing this guy in his, suit and tie on the moon, that is kind of fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2 times, they're probably back to Supes number 4 with the UN and now at the moon, so that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Say what you want about that movie, but I'll watch it over Superman 3 any day of the week.
Yeah. Now, did you think he was really killing them?
Yeah, I did. And I was a bit worried, because when you see Superman and he has that bloodshot eye, I was like,
he's effed up.
I thought, they flipped him. Like, they flipped a switch in his head like he's a robot or something like that. And now he's in military mode. And I was like, oh, shit, he's really going to the dark side. Maybe he's trying to prove a point to the extreme by killing them. But I was like, wait a second, but Superman wouldn't kill these people, but they certainly look dead. So I was intrigued. I was a little worried.
Bonnie, get ready to port again. The second he shows his ass.
Yeah, the first time I saw this, I was right there with you. I thought, holy crap, he's really killing these people. They appear dead, I did not know he had some sort of mastermind plan, like in Superman 2, to fake everyone out.
He went into orbit at Mach 7.
Yeah, the lights were on out here while he was safe in there. I thought that the end was a bit of a cop-out in this movie.
Any second you'd hear the...
How so?
Well, the way look at that face. I was like, oh, shit. He's all business now. And everybody's scared. It's like that reaction they had in Superman 3 when he's at the bar and he's drunk. He's flicking the beer nuts at the glass.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what do you do with a guy who's all powerful and he's in a bad mood?
Yeah, look at him. He's messing with him. I love that.
Yeah, so now he's like, I can really take you out anytime I want. So.
See?
He's like, you didn't think you could actually stop me, did you?
Yeah.
And even, just when he was, super speed and getting close, he's just smiling,
Well,
he's like, is this really what you wanted? Look at me,
Yeah.
So this stuff, that's kind of the best Manchester's got. That's nothing for Superman,
Well, yeah, I mean, Manchester knows he's finished.
Yeah, and I do love the bloodshot eye. That was a nice touch.
Well, by the ending, I meant that the way he reveals his plan when he reveals all his robots and everything. Oh, this is how I did it. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of,
Yeah. I wish I could tell you if that's what actually happened in the comic, because they do have to make concessions for the movies, but and they are all based off of some sort of comic, mind you. So I don't know if they did any tweaking of the ending for that.
Well, I guess this is the ultimate question here. When we said that, well, when you made that very apt comparison of Manchester to Judge Dredd being judge, jury, and executioner all in one. Superman has become Judge Dredd right now, and now he's become Manchester's judge. He's like, well, I think you're unfit to be in this world, so I'm going to rid you from the world. And, oh, you don't like that? That's too bad. So right there, he's like, that just doesn't work. And that's where he's trying to say his plan was no good from the get-go.
And when I found one, I cut it out.
Focus through your pupils like a scalpel.
Yeah, it's really it's not fair to do that to a superhero. You can't take away their powers.
Yep, but he sure did. And now he's just punching him out. Just because.
Well, he's bitch slapping him right now.
Oh, I know. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
And do you realize what a bitch slap from Superman would feel like? That would be wholly unfucking pleasant.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I'm sure a real punch from him would be like a train hitting you. So a bitch slap would be like a fly swatter, maybe.
Hell no, that'd be like just a steel beam.
Steel beam, yeah. Still, it would hurt quite a bit. Yeah.
You all saw. Everyone on Earth saw what you did to us, and they know you know better.
But this is it's scary because these are the lengths he had to go to drive his point home, not just to the people, but to the elite.
Yeah, but at the end, you're still left with these.
Yes, they did see.
These questions. Well, no, you're still left with these questions. You're like, well, what are we going to do with the evil in the world?
Yeah.
It's Superman isn't the ultimate answer. The ultimate answer is, well, we have to become better.
Yeah.
Somehow. But there was some good lines from Manchester I meant to mention earlier where
I'm not you.
He calls them sheep.
Mm-hmm.
He refers to the people as sheep, and he says, oh, we're going to drive them kicking and screaming if we have to. Because they obviously can't do it for themselves, so we'll do it for them. So ultimately, I guess the answer would just be that the world has to become a better place without so much of Superman's influence that we have to take care of our own demons.
Right.
I guess.
Your sister to start.
We have to become better, more evolved. And is that ever going to happen? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. I don't think.
Oh, probably not.
I think we'll.
People.
I don't know. I mean, we've become more evolved over the years, but through the centuries, and more civilized. But
have we been?
No. I think. I mean, we're still basically cavemen, but we drive cars and we eat with forks.
We've established a system of laws that make us afraid to do what we really want to do.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
which is the point of the laws. But
we've seen that in other fictions when the government collapses, when we lose our electricity, that we turn to our baser instincts of survival, and we're willing to do things. And I don't know. We're certainly not going to pass that up anytime soon. Grow out of that. That's going to take another millennia, maybe. I don't know.
If we're lucky.
I mean, right now, hopes for mankind's future aren't particularly strong.
No. Reality we all share.
I think we'll be lucky if we make it to, the 24th century in the condition that Star Trek depicts us in, anyway.
Oh, we'll never make it that far. Maybe to the 21st century, but I don't think doing that well.
Yeah, it's not going to look like that.
No.
We're not going to be like that.
If you ever scare me like that again, I'll kill you.
If I ever scare me like that again, it's a deal.
I do like that we see him physically pretty worked up.
Yeah, he gets beat to shit. That was nice.
He's not invulnerable.
Usually, you don't get to see Superman with ripped clothes and blood. That was nice. Batman, sure, because he's a real guy, but not Superman.
George Newbern did the voice. Okay. He does, or did, the voice for Superman in the Justice League TV show.
Okay.
So his voice is actually similar to Tim Daly's. Tim Daly, it will always be the voice of Superman to me. But George Newbern does a very good job also. You know who George Newbern is, right?
No.
He's the fiancé and father of the bride. Brown and Nose.
You mean
Brian?
Really? Brian McKenzie?
Yeah, that's him. That's
He's
George
Superman
Newbern.
in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, if you were to watch the first season, say, of Justice League and then listen to him in this, he learns how to do Superman better. But yeah, that's him.
All right.
So we're here at the credits. I'm really delighted that you liked it.
Yeah, it's actually made me curious about checking out some of the other movies that you gave me. Superman,
All-Star Superman,
and Batman. Year One or something like that.
Both are excellent.
So it's made me curious to check them out. I was definitely going into this with a little trepidation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have seen Superman cartoons before.
Sure.
And plenty of superhero movies before. They're very much in everybody's brain these days, a little too much. I mean, I hope it's a trend that ends sometime soon. That's how I feel. I know you enjoy them a lot. But
well, these, because they're produced for, the home market, not the theater.
That's not what I meant. I meant that it seems that every other month there's a comic book movie coming out.
Oh.
And it's becoming just too much. The market has become saturated with it.
Well, yeah, that's true. And what the things that you're talking about, those are produced for, the mass audience, where there's not a lot of depth. These ones, because they're not intending to sell at the movie theater,
Mm-hmm.
they can get a little more in depth. They can have the villains be the elite,
Mm-hmm.
whereas they wouldn't do that in a live action movie. They play safe.
Well,
I do Lex Luthor.
I just meant that I'm a bit burned out. We've had so many Thor, Green Lantern, Green Hornets, Captain America, Iron Man, and then the Avengers
Hulk.
movie itself.
Yeah.
It's just been nonstop, and I'm hoping sometime that it will end.
It'll burn out just like every other,
and give it a rest.
Yeah. I mean, it'll happen. Just like westerns were the thing for a while. Right now, it's superhero movies, and then they'll fall off for a while and become so boring no one cares, and then eventually they'll come back.
Well, Justin, I just want to thank you for introducing me to this other world of superheroes, the animation side.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely far more entertaining than I imagined it would be. And
well, I did not doubt that you would find it somewhat enjoyable. I didn't expect you to like it as much as you apparently did. That was a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time choosing which one to put in front of you.
Well, ultimately, you left it up to me.
Well, yeah,
and I chose Superman because, well, I just recently done 4 Batman commentaries, one with you, and
kind of burned on Batman.
Yeah, it's kind of burned on Batman. So I was like, you know what? We haven't done Superman in a while. We've only done, we did Superman 4, we did Superman Returns, but
yeah,
that was a long time ago. So why not give the soups a little time in the sun?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I highly recommend you check out All-Star Superman. It's got a fantastic ending. And as far as Batman Year One, given that you and I, ultimately did many commentaries on them, I think you would find that Batman Year One very interesting, especially since you were coming off of the Joel Schumacher Batmans. I think you'd be refreshed to see a really well told Batman story. When you've come off of such cartoony stuff, you'll find Schumacher stuff more cartoony than you will the animated Batman Year One.
I hope so. I mean,
Batman Year One it's way more serious
because those were practically live action cartoons.
They were.
At least the fourth one was.
Batman Year One, that one is emotionally affecting. You get involved in that.
All right.
Okay, well, we're well past the credits, so...
Yeah, well, until next time, when Justin watches something that's... Well, I'll get to turn the tables.
Yeah,
He'll get to watch something that he would never watch, and I'll choose it for him, so...
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
We'll see what that is to be, so you'll have to stay tuned to find out what that's going to be.
Okay.
Well, until next time, I'm Josh. Good night.
I'm Justin. Good night.